you get to influence that onto other musicians now, because stuff from the H.E.R studio kind of leads into LPM, Lisa Patterson music, which is what you have going on today. Would you like to enlighten us a little bit with that?
Whew, yes, I would. It's my three core interests. I finally, after all these years, got to say, you know what? I don't want to do any more of the things that I don't want to do anymore. And that could be anything from making a few extra bucks by renting the upstairs of my coach house to Airbnb, or taking a gig doing live sound, or teaching private piano lessons, like all the things that creatives do as side hustles. I'm like, the pandemic, I lost my beloved coach house that I had for almost 15 years. And I'm like, and by that, I mean, the property owner decided to sell the property when we were in shutdown. It was like the shock of the century for me. I was like, what?
Wow.
So I basically like, okay, if this is going to be the rug getting pulled out, I put everything in storage. I stayed at my friend's house thinking the pandemic would be over in like 10 months. And I was like, let's reboot in a brand new way. And like, no matter how hard it is, see if you can make this happen, because this is it. As far as we know, this is our time on the mortal coil, spinning through space. So I found this new space here. It's a live work loft. It's a little smaller than my Leslieville coach house, but it's still got everything I need. And I refined my focus to 3 areas: sound production, obviously that's like first joy, artist development, brand new artist development program, and industry advocacy projects, which is also, all 3 of those are a big love of mine. In the sound production, it's basically self-explanatory what we've been talking about as a producer here. And the artist development is kind of, again, said with all humility, it's kind of groundbreaking, because labels have generally stopped doing a lot of artist development. You know, times have changed, and how artists are, you know, blowing up on TikTok or whatever. It's labels lacking in funding, or A&R. It's changed. And also because I come from having taught young people, like say from between 9, 10 and 18, 19, taught them how to write songs. They came to me for piano lessons, and then it turned into songwriting lessons, because that was really my own joy. And I'd be like, hey, this is a cool thing. Hey, have you ever thought of writing a song? And they're like, oh, I could do that. I'm like, yeah, let me show you how. So then they're singing and playing their own songs. And of course, because it's a studio and I can record, then we start recording their songs, and they're thrilled on that, right? So I saw the benefits of that, how it helps young people really express themselves and find their way in the world and discover who they are. And so it's beyond being a rock star. This is like personal growth that serves a person for their whole life. And then as I'm doing it, I'm like, okay, you know what? Like, this artist development is also sort of like a 360 company doing management and label work, because I advise them on, you know, getting their stuff streaming and doing the marketing. I'm now doing showcases for them. I've done 2 so far. Third
so
one
not
coming.
only are you the producer who deals with the scheduling in the back end and all this, now you're doing the label work on top of it.
Yeah, but what's funny is, like, it's so interesting how like the industry is reinventing itself in so many ways. I have no desire to be a record label, but I'm kind of being one. And I have no desire to be an artist manager, but I'm kind of being one. So this is where it's a funny hybrid. And then I hear people online in webinars, you know, there's a guy in the UK I heard saying, oh yeah, I have a boutique, you know, company, and I do management, label and production for artists. I'm like, wait, what? Other people are doing this now? Cool. So I think the instinct is right. And then on my website, there's a quote from Susan Rogers.
I was actually going to bring that up.
Oh, please.
So I wrote that down because I want to touch on that. So Susan Rogers, who's worked with Prince, Bare Naked Ladies, and more, the list goes on, specifically said, this artist development program, this is a great idea. Previously, for a signed artist doing a debut album, the label, A&R, manager, and fan base would be shaping your development before you got to the studio. Today, in the era of unsigned artists, producers are now more responsible than ever for doing this work of artist development. So Susan was extremely impressed with what you have going on with your program.
Yeah, and this was in a webinar. I never necessarily would have run into her casually to talk about it and get that feedback, but it was in an invitational only webinar with 10 female producers, Canadian producers, and her. She's based in Boston in the US. And it had come up, and I mentioned my program, and she got very excited, and that gave me such a boon, like such a boost of energy, and believing that, yeah, I mean, producers are essentially helping the artists develop their sonic signature. And that has to come first before you're designing your promo and shooting your video. And like, who are you as in your sonic signature? Because there's so many angles for people to go. And unless you're born into it and your sound just kind of falls out of you, most people are on a bit of a search. And sometimes it changes even year by year. And even for huge artists, like, artists have to be allowed to grow and find have their own journey. And hopefully the fans come along.
100%.
So yeah, so the program is designed. The artists come once a week. It's not a program as in like a school where it's funded. People pay. This is private. So, but I am selective about who comes into the program, and they just have to have the heart and soul and some talent for sure. But they come weekly for at least an hour, sometimes 3 hours.
Are these individual meetings when they come? Okay.
Yeah, one-on-one. So we're songwriting. Maybe they've got a seed of an idea. Maybe they're going to hop in the booth because I'm building a track for them. Maybe we're co-writing. Maybe they want to work on their production skills. I have some of them who will just sit right here, and I'll say, "Yep, you take it. Take the mouse in your hand. Let's show you how to do some automation." And some of them really come to love that, and they go out and buy Logic and a Mac, and they want to be in audio, which is thrilling for me.
That's so inspiring.
Yeah, going into the live side of it now. So I've had these 2 live showcases, and I think I've realized, oh yeah, that is why I'm kind of being a label manager, because I booked a rehearsal space. I'm coaching them on how to design a set, how to put on a decent show, how to have experience on a microphone. So all of a sudden I'm like, what the hell is it that I'm doing? But I don't know. It's happening. It's unfolding. So that's all of that. And then the third component is the industry projects. And sometimes it's something that I've launched, like you've mentioned the listening party, which we're going to talk about. But sometimes I'm hired to come on and be on a panel or organize a panel.
You've been on a lot of panels, haven't you? I've seen that on your list, and you're involved in so many areas of the music industry that it's really awesome. And that was one reason I just really wanted to talk with you here today too, is because you're involved in so much, and we're not even going to have time to talk about everything you do. But
it's okay.
It's awesome.
I mean, it's a little bit of a all over the jack of all trades type, but I also feel like my interests are varied, and I feel very strongly about having women's voices heard. And in the song camps that I'm the coordinator for a national organization up here called the Songwriters Association of Canada. They get funding from government funding as well, but they do song camps, which if anyone has ever done one, they're super fun. It's like a 3-day intensive. There's usually 3 writers put together, and it rotates around every day. You're with new writers. It's kind of like, speed dating Nashville style. And, you're in a studio and you're writing, and you're either going to, have something that you yourself might want to record, or it's for sync pitch or for another artist. But just get that muscle greased and get the songs coming out. And I love doing that and helping. Basically what I do is I do research. I don't just call up my friends. Nepotism is one of my most hated parts of the industry, where people just like, oh yeah, you want to be in this? I know you, so I'm going to open the door for you. No, I want to know who's out there I don't know about yet. I'll ask for references. I'll just snoop around on Bandcamp or YouTube. And so it's been a great discovery. It's been expanding the community like wildfire. Like I feel like we're over 100 people that I could just off the top of my head, like email, who are now involved. And by people, I mean women or, gender diverse people. So in terms of like that movement of that momentum, I think it's now got a life of its own. So I may have been at the outset, one of the original kind of groundbreakers, but like it's happening on its own. There, people are going, wait, yeah, let's do this. Why not?
So with the artists that you're developing, do you get them into these showcases like that then? And do you continue working with them after that? Or is that kind of like you've graduated at this point?
No, there's no graduating. There's like, it never ends. I hope you write songs till you die. No. Well, because it's a new program, it's only been running a year, right? So I've just incorporated. This is a big move for me. And thank you. I am really excited to expand this program. And I'm just in the kind of brainstorming stage. What it means is if I expand and invest, it means that those who are invested themselves and really dedicated, and they're improving, they're releasing. So they're writing and recording here. They're releasing their songs to streaming and live. I've got a whole playlist of that. And that now they're playing these live showcases that I'm organizing. There are huge organizations in Canada that will go to like a European conference or festival, and they'll put on like the Canadian showcase. So I want my artists, I talk about them like I'm managing them, but I'm just really their producer. But I want this program to have legs where I can open up new opportunities for these artists to be in bigger venues or opportunities where they can grow their careers. And hopefully, I do it with the full knowledge that if they get a signing that, that there's pressure on them to work with some other producer, like there's a possibility that I have to let the birdies fly from the nest. Either that or I sign them to an exclusive, or, the label has to buy me out because I've spent all the time doing the development. But right now, like I'm in the early stages of really what I want is I want the best for them. And so, I'm loving doing the co-writing, and it's really satisfying to hear like track after track that I've produced and engineered and tweaked with them with their lyrics and melodies being released on. And so it's increasing my library as well. So it's very satisfying.
I feel like you have a passion for wanting to help others, and just even the aspect of how you said you approach it. You teach some of them how to run automation and to run the system. It's not just, hey, come in here and let's develop you as an artist and work on your song. Hands on with all the gear. I'll show you how to do it. And that takes me actually to, there's another area you love helping people. And this is with the listening party that you throw together. So what exactly is the listening party?
The listeningparty.vip is our website.
VIP. I forgot there's a VIP in there.
Yeah, I know. It's a bit funny. Just, it was sort of half a joke. And then we were like, yeah, we kind of like it. So the listening party is based on the music industry tradition of when there's a release, the artist will often, the label artist management company will throw a listening party, literally. So it's often in a studio or a private home. And it's like, hey, here's my new recording. Here's my new baby. And everyone sits around, has a few drinks and cheers and congratulates the artist. It's very profound to sort of reveal, the thing that you've been working so hard on, get some feedback. Hopefully not anything too scathing because your ego is super fragile at that moment. But it's a celebratory event that showcases new works. So I was in a song camp, and there were a bunch of producers at the end who were sharing their tracks. And the feeling amongst these women was just like so amazing, because we were all so blown away at each other's talent and just going, oh man, that track, like we were celebrating as we were listening. We were dancing and just like, it felt so good. Right. And I was like, damn, we should do this like in a club, like never mind this sort of exclusive, like a sexy studio. Like, no, let's do it in a club, invite the general public who don't often understand even what we do. Right. and make it like a showcase for artists, but it's for producers. So it's in a club, makes it more informal, but we get a really like high-end studio sound system brought in, which we did.
Oh, cool. So
And
not out of the club system and not out of their speakers, bring it out of it.
no,
So on a system we're familiar with listening to our references on.
yeah, because it was an Adams audio system. It would be sort of defeat the purpose of like playing it through a live system. So we came up with the concept. I had a few chums who were like down to try to put it together. And we came up with how we were going to do it, put out a call for submissions. So it's somewhat competitive. Like, we want people to submit. We also were inviting high-level guest artists, guest producers, because that sort of provides the incentive and the inspiration for younger producers to go, wow, listen to this track. Who's that? Karen Kasowski? Oh my God, that's so good. So so we had the first launch in August. We didn't know how it was going to go, but it went great. And we structured it in sets, and had some great audio people to even everything out, because we accepted, demos to mastered singles. So we didn't want anyone's track to kind of pop out bigger than the others. So we just try to like even things out. Really nice balance of genres, diversity in styles of music. We pitched to the city of Toronto, who has community outreach funding. They gave us a few $1,000s to help rent the club and pay for transportation for the sound system. I almost said PA, but no, it's the system, and pay for a few other costs and pay ourselves a little stipend.
Wow.
So, it was a very good first launch. Then we did another one in December. We were dreaming big. We were thinking for a year. Yeah, it's going to be like a quarterly series. I'm like, oh my God, it's so much work. Oof. Okay. Anyway, no problem. We figured it out. And so we did the second one, also went well, and just like so inspiring and giving so much energy. And I just, we wanted to be a little bit kind of radically inclusive. So in the industry, the term inclusive or equity and inclusion, when you're talking about gender, because also ethnicity and race is an issue there as well. But in terms of gender, it's assumed that we mean female, non-binary. And what I was, for all these past 5 years in my advocacy, always highlighting and elevating women, non-binary folks. However, I started to think, okay, lots of people are doing it now. Great. It's caught on. Do we actually want, and I say we, I mean women, do we want to be sequestered over here in our little area? Actually, no, we want to be part of the mainstream industry. We want to be involved in all of it. It should be for everyone to be part of it. Now, people who are traditionally excluded, or the term we use now often is underrepresented, okay? You do have to make more space. You have to consciously create space for these people at the table or in the room. So we haven't abandoned that mission, but the radically inclusive approach for this listening party in December was, you know what? Let's be at the front end of this wave, which is straight white guys are welcome. We want everybody. Like this is about inclusion for everyone, and everyone's voice matters, as opposed to, straight white dudes. Sorry, you guys already get all the opportunities. This is for us. I did that for 5 years, and now I'm like, yeah, you know what? Let's like try to get everyone together on this.
Get the merge.
Yeah, get the merge and get the mainstream industry getting us involved. So it's not, I don't even have to be identified as a female producer. I'm just a producer.
Right.
Like that whole thing of like, oh God, can we just be credited on our merits and accepted for our talents and craft, right? So that was really exciting to me to say, we're going to be kind of radically inclusive on this and one step ahead potentially.
What's the process like for that? Like for an artist for a producer or engineer to join that, do they have to apply, or do you hand select them?
It's a mixture of both. So we put out a public call, like announcement in socials, and we send emails to people to spread the word to like music organizations, music industry organizations, labels, etc. And we say, here's a link, here's the information, feel free to submit a track. So there's a deadline, and people submit one track. It can be a demo, it can be a mastered single. It has to be recorded within the past 12 months. And anyone could submit. And then we take all of those submissions, and we have a committee that listens to, sort of like gets like the long list and then the short list. But as I mentioned, I think it's important to have high level people that wouldn't necessarily even submit for something like this. I reach out to them personally, and I'm like, hey, your career is just skyrocketing. You're such a great model of where a lot of people want to be. Would you mind a track from an album you've recently worked on that we could basically have bragging rights and play your track and go, woo, let's do this. And people are always 100% like, yeah, of course. So there is some people that we make space for automatically. And having said that about the submissions, again, this is where everyone's welcome, but we're going to prioritize underrepresented. Mm-hmm. So we're going to make sure that, I think the last time we had 5 sets of 4, so we played 20 tracks, I believe. And I would say 15 of those were people that we call underrepresented. And then a good 5 that were, people doing really good work who are maybe more represented in the industry. So.
Okay. And you said that the city is backing this now, the city of Toronto. So 2 questions with that. How do you reach out to the city and say, hey, do you want to help fund and help promote our program? And that kind of went into my second question, but do they help promote this? And are they promoting your application system when applications are open? And kind of how does that work with the city on that?
They don't do any promotions for us. They basically give us credibility. Will they give us money? A little bit of money to operate, make it happen, because we pay the club, and
right.
But they do have well-meaning support. Like I've had video meetings with them in advance, and they tend to have the enthusiasm, but everyone's so busy, like they don't have time to invest. But they do try to come out at least, or let people know. So yeah, they offered us the ability, the resources to pull it off. They don't really help promote it, except that we use they give us their logo, mm-hmm. and their logo appears on the website and on the digital flyer. And that lends us credibility for sure.
Sure.
Right. When people see that. So then I go to other companies, music industry companies, live show or festivals or studios or labels. And a lot of them run by women. And I say, hey, would you like to get on as a community supporter? I don't ask people to partner. I don't ask them for money. I just want you to have your logo on here, like you're giving us your thumbs up. You're giving us your blessing. At this point, that's still what it is. I may have to segue into asking for small donations. We're just in this very moment waiting to hear back from the city if they will fund our 3rd one. And they're not sure if they're going to have the budget for another one or for like an ongoing series. So I am, as I'm expanding for my artist development stuff, I'm also looking at how do I broaden my nonprofit sector, my nonprofit wing of my company, in order to do more of these so that the listening party can grow. Honestly, Justin, I feel like it has legs. It could go for 20 years. It's like a showcase for producers that will go beyond being about advocacy, gender, race advocacy, and underrepresented, but just a thing that, like, whose dad or mom or a cousin or sibling understands really what producers do. And imagine if more people did, they would actually get what you do, like, oh yeah, producer, music producer. I know what a music producer does.
Well,
And I have
I know I've
respect.
tried to explain, at times, oh, it's like you hear this song and there's this cool effect that does this right here and da da da, and then you see the people's like gears turning in their heads sometimes
Yeah.
when you start going on a tangent. But you can go on that tangent with everybody else that's a producer that you're showing your music to, and they get it. It's a,
Yeah.
it's like
And
a
I
place
think
where I could finally be understood.
exactly. And that's the vibe in the room. That's the vibe in the room. It's like when someone's track is played at the end of it, imagine how rare it is as a producer to have this track that you just finessed every frequency. And then you have this moment where other people who appreciate that work hear your track, they're listening intently. And when it ends, they all burst into applause and cheering. I mean, it's just the crazy, most amazing feeling because it's like, wow, cool. That's usually only reserved for live artists on a stage, right? So just the fact that we have this, first of all, being heard and seen, but also like networking and getting gigs out of it. Like people were like, oh man, who sang on that track, or who was who played guitar on that? And then people are exchanging numbers and contacts and hey, I want to hire you to produce a track. So like it has legs that it would be a very fruitful thing to generate career opportunities for people.
Yeah, it's really cool to see that side of it because, like you said, you see this for artists, whether if it's a CD release party or they're doing a general listening party for the artists. But to have that for the producer, engineer, and to have the city back you on that, even if they don't do it in the future, that's a huge win because they said, I support you. And for something like that, where in the arts, that doesn't get supported a lot all the time.
Basically, I stopped the guy outside on the street who came out of an industry event. I got introduced to him like, oh, do you know this guy? He's in charge of like the music industry and film industry for the city. I'm like, no, but hey, can I pick your ear about something like, or plant a seed? And we started chatting and he liked my enthusiasm. We had a phone meeting and I talked him into it. So, I mean, right now we're trending, like we as in the underrepresented are trending. So it looks good on the city. It meets their mandate, right? To help other communities. So who knows how long these kinds of trends matter. For me, it's lifelong. Like there's always reasons to uplift people.
But like you said, I think it has legs and it has the potential to go further with the listening party. So even if city or not, whatever you're doing on your own and growing it, where do you see this actually going? And what are kind of your goals or plans for this to evolve into in the future?
I see it being at least twice a year, hopefully 3 times a year. And it's in a club atmosphere that is comfortable and it grows. I see us being able to present, again, the Junos are like the American Grammys.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever we have a Junos once a year, there's always these events leading up, like shows and conferences. And I feel that we could present at major international events. We could curate a list of producer submissions. I believe that we could grow into a national thing. You could have it in every city in the country. I think that, we're only limited by our imagination. So I think it has legs. It's just a matter of how to shape it. Being a nonprofit, to obviously I have to make a living, and working for free is not really an option. So as much as I do a lot of advocacy pro bono, I do need my time covered a little bit. So what I'd like to do is get sustainable funding, grow it nationally, potentially internationally, and do them at events where people are like, oh, wow, cool. You mean this is Drake's producer, or this is, it just like, it could be something that is thrilling both for those who are listening and the people who create the music.
Now, as far as the people that are involved that are the showcase producers, are they all local to Toronto or are they allowed from outside areas?
Oh, yeah. I mean, what we learned after the first one is that has a lot more impact if the producer is there on site when their track's being played, because that's really a big part of the thrill. So our first one, about half of the producers that were being showcased were there and about half weren't. And it was really a different feeling in the room,
Mm-hmm.
because you hear this great track and everyone's like, wow, cool, who's that? Awesome. And but the person isn't there. So, okay, it has some benefit, but not the same as when the producer's right there and everyone kind of swarms in and like, wow, you're amazing, right? So building their confidence and their connections and all that. So right now it's Toronto centric, yes. Right now it's people who can show up other than our v.i.p featured producer who might, Canadian Toronto person who now lives in Nashville, or Canadian Toronto person who now lives in Montreal, and they can't be on site. But I requested their track, so they get a pass. But that's the thing. That's why, like, taking it to another city, across the country, is that it would be done with the people local to that area.
Well, even besides all of that, I think having the event in total and having the networking and people be able to showcase their skills and be able to get work from it, it's just an all around great event. And I think at some point you're only in your first year. So if you keep this going, you're going to have people flying in because they want to be there and they want to submit their tracks and they want to attend, whether they're big name producer in Nashville or whether they're a little person here in Michigan. They're going to want to hop on a flight, and it's going to be like the NAM show for just producers only.
You see, that's the kind of thinking I like. Just like go shoot for the what do I say? Shoot for the moon, shoot for the stars, and you'll get to the moon. Because
Right.
in Canada, we have travel grants for people who are selected for things. So if you get selected for this and it happens to be held in Toronto, but you live in Vancouver, you can get a travel grant to come out for it because it's your career development. So
Wow. It does seem that Canada has quite a few programs for that. I know there's some music grants for artists that are maybe they want to record an album and they can't fund it themselves.
yes, there are. They're very competitive, right? It's a highly juried thing, but yes, we do. Yeah, we're pretty lucky.
You do so many awesome things in your career, from everything from helping others to the panels you've been on, and just an inspiration in the music industry as a whole. I do have one final question for you though before we do wrap things up. So, if you could give any piece of advice to aspiring music producers or musicians, what would that one piece of advice be? Maybe it's something that you've learned throughout your career that you wish you would have done differently, or something that you've just seen that would be inspirational to others.
I think it comes back to that old saying of like um, preparation meeting opportunity. Um, you need to be, you have to buckle up and be tenacious. So tenacity is a big part of this. I've seen people stick with it who maybe had slightly less talent than someone who just gave up, but it's staying in your lane, finding your lane. And so you have to do the back work. You have to do the work, which is, if you're a songwriter, you have to write all the time, every day. Well, not all the time, every day. You have to, do other things like sleep. But if you're a producer, if you're an engineer, if you're a musician, like, you need to practice your craft, make mistakes, suck, try again. The more you elevate your craft, that when that opportunity comes, you're ready. So that's what I'd say.
That actually reminded me of I think Dave Grohl said it about Nirvana, about young bands, and he's saying, just get in a garage, jam, get your instruments together, and just suck. Keep playing, and keep sucking, and keep sucking, and keep sucking, and eventually you're Nirvana. He said that's basically what they did. But that's very true and very wise words, that you have to own your craft, and it takes time.
Yeah, and find your people. You need a sense of community. Otherwise, it is quite a lonely effort. I work alone a lot, and I quite like it. I like my own company. I like being alone, editing and all that. But just in terms of, feeling like there's raison d'être, as we'd say in Canada, the reason to be. Like, you need to know that others have your back and that other people see you and acknowledge your work. So find your people, go to shows and the bands that you like, or find them online. Like, you need to find, you can't just be sitting alone staring at the wall feeling like I'm never going to have any opportunities. There are some people who go out and schmooze a lot. So they go to industry events and they're always coming up and hyping themselves, that's also a bit much. Like, I wouldn't suggest too much of that. Like, if you have the talent and the craft and you keep putting yourself out there, the right people will be drawn to you. Just make sure people know where you exist, but don't do that mistake at conferences or events where like two people are talking and you're like, oh, I really want to talk to that person, and you kind of come up and you hover nervously, kind of, like I used to do that, and oh my God, did I ever learn the hard way.
But that's true though. The whole networking thing, making those connections is huge, whether if you're a producer, if you're an artist, even if you are unable to attend events or to shows, there are online communities and things that you can get a part of. And even just to create that sense of community and know that there's others that are doing the same thing as you and to support you back.
And I'll just add, again, this is something I learned the hard way, because I am a diligent hard worker, and sometimes that energy comes through in the way that I interface. But we have to be good, kind person. If you're a good, kind person and you approach someone and you get a sense that we don't know what's going on with people. They might have just lost a dear one who might have died, or they might be struggling on some other issue. Like, if you sense that you're foisting yourself upon them, or they don't have the capacity, or it's not the right timing, like, know when to back off. Because I think that goes a long way to say, hey, maybe this isn't a really good time. Is there, we'll talk another time. Like, just, not being too ambitious in people's faces, I think it gets, it makes an impact.
Well, Lisa, it has been a pleasure talking with you today. This has been an awesome conversation and learning so much about everything that you have. I mean, I knew about your background a little bit as far as what you've been involved in with the H.E.R studio and the artist development a bit, but to hear it in depth and how everything evolved and how you got to that point is really incredible to hear. So I thank you. I hope everyone appreciates hearing all of that as well. And
yeah, I was babbling on for a while there.
I could just sit and listen to you talk. It's just so interesting. I love it.
I think you're going to have some editing, honestly. Chop.
Zero edits. We'll see what happens here.
That's
but
a long.
Do you have anywhere that you would like to send people?
So my website is my name with music on the end. So lisapattersonmusic.com. Everything's pretty much there, including links to stuff. Although you might want to check out my Spotify playlist, which you can find me in LPM production. There's several playlists there, but the production playlist has more recent updates. I try to update my website as often as I can. And some new singles just came out. Pretty excited about stuff these days. Feeling pretty good about it.
Awesome.
Oh, you can find me on follow me on Instagram at, okay, this is like my funny sort of like, she does all these things. Can you say it in one word?
That was the classic voiceover voice you hear on the movies.
I just do that. Yeah. And now, ladies and gentlemen, song maker, sound shaper. So that's my handle. Yeah. Because that's what I do basically. I make songs and I shape sounds. So
well, there you have it. Make sure to go check out everything that Lisa Patterson is doing. She's got her website, lisapattersonmusic.com. You got her socials, the listening party, artist development. Everything is so awesome. So make sure to check out her programs and her music. And Lisa, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you here today. And I hope we get to do this again soon sometime.
Thank you so much, Justin. Everyone check out Justin's stuff too. He's an upstanding man. He's a great guy and super talented. Support his stuff too. And such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for an excellent interview. Take care. Be kind.